One thing we've seen numerous times already in our readings from the Proverbs is that to follow godly wisdom instead of running after your own desires is literally a matter of life and death. And in today's reading from Proverbs 5-6, we get more of the same, with a special focus on the idea of the deadly temptations of adultery. This is a common theme in Proverbs, as Solomon wants to be sure that his son understands the danger of giving into sexual temptation. Ironically, Solomon's downfall was his own desire for women. These warnings are so important for us to think about, especially in our day and age, which says, whatever feels good, just go ahead and do it. If two people agree, why shouldn't they be able to do whatever they want to do together? The Lord tells us here that His people have to think differently. And we need to be alert, because it says in chapter 5 that sexual temptation is so attractive, it's so deceptive, it's so enticing that it's easy for us to get trapped in it. He says the lips of an adulteress drip with honey. Her speech is smoother than oil. In other words, it looks good. It sounds good. It feels right. But he says in the end, she's as bitter as poison, and her feet lead you down a path that goes to death. And then he gives some great counsel that we should all pay attention to. And by the way, nobody should think that they are ever above the need for this counsel against this temptation. He says in verse 8, don't even go near to the entrance of her house. Keep far away from her. That's such good wisdom and counsel. The best way to avoid sexual sin is not to let yourself get near it. Guard your eyes from even looking in the way of temptation. Don't allow yourself to engage what seems to be just harmless flirting. Don't allow yourself to get into situations that could lead you to temptation and trouble. Keep yourself out of compromising positions. In other words, deal with temptation before it ever comes. And the proverb doesn't tell us just to avoid putting our eyes and our heart in the wrong direction. It tells us to focus our heart and our eyes in the right direction. Not only to avoid looking in the direction of a woman who doesn't belong to you, but to focus your attention on the one that God has given you. If you're married, that means the spouse that you have. If you're not married, it means waiting until you have that spouse and then putting your focus there. He says in verse 15, drink water from your own cistern and fresh water from your own well. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. Let her satisfy you at all times. Be exhilarated in her love. Why should you embrace the body of a foreigner, he says? In other words, someone who's not part of your household, someone who belongs to somebody else. So he says in chapter 6 to his son, listen to my words of wisdom. Keep them in your heart and on your mind at all times, so that wherever you go, godly wisdom will guide you. It will guard you, he promises, even in your sleep. Temptation is so clever. It's so deceptive. We are easily led to believe that we can enjoy our sinful desires and somehow still be okay before God. But at the end of chapter 5, he's clear. He says the ways of a man are always before the eyes of the Lord. A person's sin, he says, will always capture him and lead him to destruction. Chapter 6, he says, don't think that you can embrace fire without your clothes being burned. Don't think that you can walk on coals and avoid your feet getting scorched. So he says, don't even let the beauty of one who doesn't belong to you be the focus of what your eyes are looking at. Don't let the desire for that beauty in any way begin to take root in your heart. What he said back in chapter 4, verse 23 is so applicable here, where he said, above all else, with all diligence, guard your heart, because from it flow the springs of life.